What's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. In today's video, we're doing something a little different. I'm talking about how I buy board games online. This is a video idea from one of my subscribers, Roughneck Penny. I admitted that I had like 15 games on my next to purchase list, and he said that sounds like a great video. So I thought I would turn that idea into a video, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you guys through my board game buying process. Stay till the end of the video because I got something for you guys to do to help me out at the end of the video, so stick around to the end. You're going to see a lot of games come across the screen here. You're going to get a lot of ideas of games that you might want to purchase. You're going to hear about my top 13 games to purchase near the middle of the video, and you're going to hear how I kind of break that down into a reasonable purchase. So without any further ado, let's get cracking. My first step of buying board games, make a short list. And it is by no means short. So basically what I do is I sit down with pen and paper. Here's what I got. And I make my initial just short list. So games that have been on my mind to purchase, I just kind of jot those down first. Let me tell you what those were. So I just jotted down right off the bat, Metro Maglev, The Magnificent, Whistle Mountain, After the Empire, Funfair, Renature, and Via Magica. So those were the games that I put down on my list just from the top of my head. Those are games that were top of mind for me. But I didn't want to just stop there. What if I'm missing something? What if I'm forgetting something? So the very next thing I do whilst I'm making my short list is I go on to my favorite online retailer's website. So right now I'm going to Board Game Bliss a lot. So I went to boardgamebliss.com. And if you don't know, I'm in Canada. So it's a store in Toronto. And I went onto their website and I go right to their kind of bestseller tab on their website. And I just go through their best-selling games list because I've been around the hobby for a long time, but I haven't played all the games. There's a lot of games that people rave about that I still haven't gotten around to, so I have a lot of work to do still. So I just go to the bestsellers and I go down the list. And so now here's the next set of games that got added to the list after I went through the first only, 5 or 6 pages of that list. And I'll tell you why I switched over to another site just in a bit. So I added to the list Scythe, Terraforming Mars, Splendor, Star Realms, Concordia, Isle of Cats, Role Player, Castles of Tuscany, Altiplano, Gizmos, and Bunny Kingdom. Those were the games I added to the list that I had already started, so we're already, 15, 20 games deep at this point. And then I saw on the list an expansion to Kemet, and that reminded me that I wanted Cyclades and Kemet, and I saw those for sale over Christmas over at greatboardgames.ca. So I switched where I was going and I went to greatboardgames.ca, and on their site I started looking at their new release section, and that's where I added Suburbia 2nd Edition. It's a Wonderful World, and it was the expansion that they were promoting, but it reminded me that I want the base game. Merv, Heart of the Silk Road, and Rajas of the Ganges Dice Charmers. And so I added those to the list from greatboardgames.ca, and then I switched over to 401 Games, which is another store in Toronto that I like to frequent. And on their website, I ended up adding Brass, Lancashire, and Birmingham, Memoir 44, Empires of the North, Call to Adventure, and Tournament at Camelot. And then at that point, I figured that my short list was getting a little long. So with that, my first step, I come up with a short list. So you tell me, how many games do you look at as you're deciding what to purchase? Do you look at 20, 30 games, or do you have a better idea of what you're looking for and you do more deep dives into a few games? So tell me in the comments below, how many games on average do you look at before you're making a purchase? How does that go for you? What is your short list look like? So then moving on to step 2, what I do is I start to think about my last few board game purchases, and I kind of try and come up with a success ratio. Like, how have those purchases gone, and can I learn anything from those purchases? And what I mean by successful purchases is I just mean if those games got to the table and got played. Here's the list of purchases that I've done over the last year or so. My very last purchase was I just bought Euphoria with Cartographers. So it was a 2-game purchase. That was aces. I wanted to do some videos around Euphoria to test some things out, so it got played. Sarah and I had a blast with it. I tacked on Cartographers, had a blast with that, did a collab video with Billy Indiana, and that was awesome. So that was good. And then my last purchase before that was around Christmas, and I bought Dune Imperium, Lost Ruins of Arnak, Bonfire, and Zolkin. So I bought Zolkin because my buddies and I were playing on Board Game Arena a lot and we're really enjoying the heck out of it. And so I got a hard copy, but with the lockdown, Zolkin is a game that we've been playing online, we've been enjoying it. I got a hard copy now. I don't know when that's going to get to the table. So that was a bit of a... And then Bonfire, just no matter how hard I tried to get it to the table, it just didn't work out. First time I taught Sarah the game, she fell asleep. So I think I've told that story before, but so that's been a roadblock. Bonfire's been a roadblock, and it's kind of, I love heavier games, but there is that kind of disconnect between how fun the game is and how fun the rules explanation is. And if the rules explanation is work, it's harder to get that game played. But Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak, they got played, they got reviewed, had a blast with them, brought Dune Imperium to the table with my buddies recently, had a blast with that. Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak were awesome. And so 50% on that purchase. Okay, so not the greatest percentage, but a lot of fun out of 2 of those games. The purchase before that, I got Wingspan, Chronicles of Crime, Pandemic Legacy, and Undaunted Normandy. And so again, this was a poor purchase. Wingspan is the only thing that got lots of good play and is going to be sticking around in my collection for a long time. Chronicles of Crime, it just came and went. Sarah and I had decent experience with the tutorial play, but for me it just felt like a lot of waving my phone around at different pictures, and I just didn't get a lot out of the deduction aspect. For whatever reason, it fell flat for me. I know a lot of people love it. I know that I must be missing something, but it just didn't hit for me. And then Pandemic Legacy, it's just on our shelf. It's over there, and it's still in shrink, and it's waiting to be played. Sarah and I thought it would be a fun idea to play Pandemic Legacy during the pandemic. We hear it's really great with 2. It just, we failed to get to the table or talk ourselves into that many games of one thing in a row, but we're still holding on to it, still hoping. I'm hoping that turns into an A+ purchase. But for now, it's still sitting on our shelf. And Undaunted Normandy, just again, something that didn't get to the table. I heard really good things about the game, but again, war games are definitely not my thing, and I know that this is a very accessible war game, and it has kind of a card play thing going on that seemed really cool. And even though I thought it was cool, I liked the rules, again, it just didn't get to the table. Basically, that last purchase, it was just a 25% success rate. From those purchases, I wanted to ask myself, what did I learn? And so basically the things that I learned from those purchases, I have more energy to play the newest games. So when the games are new and a lot of people are talking about them, so you're doing Imperium or Lost Ruins of Arnak, I can get those played. And my buddies, they want to play those games because they're hearing a lot about them as well. So if they're the hotness, they're going to get played. The other thing is that I kind of need a game that has some meat on the bones, but isn't too overly complex, so that Sarah, one, will play it with me, but also that I'll enjoy it. You know, I do like heavy games, but medium weight Euros, that's my jam. If I buy games of that ilk, I usually do very well. So again, it looks like the hotness and games of medium weight Euros, also games that were successful in those purchases were games that were medium weight Euro, yes, but they're also just sort of no-brainers for the board game community. Highly rated on Board Game Geek. A lot of people love to play them. So those are the kind of games now that I'm looking at. Okay? Are they on the new side? And if they're not on the new side, are they really well regarded? And are they in that medium weight Euro category for the most part? Again, that's not a strict rule, but that's kind of the idea that we're going for. So armed with that knowledge, for step 3, it's just to review the big list with my pen, and I start circling games. And so I'm just circling the ones that are, and for this, it's not anything deep. It's just, is this game going to stay on the short list or not? So it's just an initial cut, right? So nothing too complicated, just instinct. Is this going to stay? Is this going to stay? Is this going to stay? So let's talk about that list. I have 13 games that survived the first cut. And I'm going to tell you what the game is. I'm going to tell you what is drawing me to that game, and not in super abundant detail, just enough for you to get a taste for what I'm looking for when I'm buying board games. So Metro Maglev stays on the list. So this is from the designer of Suburbia and Between Two Castles and Castles of Mad King Ludwig, just the original Castle of Mad King Ludwig. Ted Alspach. We're looking at a cool little game about, again, medium weight, where we're building subway tunnels. Well, it's a magnetic levitation train, but you're building these trains routes, and you're picking up passengers. And what's really cool about the game that really makes me excited to play it is that there's different color passengers, and as you pick up these passengers, they're unlocking certain abilities and bonuses that will help you get further along in the game. So it's all about this tug of war of what bonuses you're going to unlock as you continue down the road in the game, and this tension of not having certain bonuses while having others. And so I really like the idea of this game. The Magnificent. This is an interesting one, because this is a game where it is like just everything that I love. There is dice, there is fulfilling contracts, there is tracks that you're going around to get bonuses. There's polyomino stuff, which I'm not super into, so that's kind of a knock against the game for me, but just the package, the look, what you're doing, it just looks really fun to me in a mechanical way, because it only looks mechanical. There's nothing thematic here that really sings of putting on a circus, but what makes this doubly attractive is that it's been really hard to get in English for a long time, and so now that's more available here in Canada, I want to kind of jump on it while I can. So that's the Magnificent. Then we're going to look at Whistle Mountain. So Whistle Mountain, this is this cool worker placement game where you have a flood that's coming up across the board as you're building, again, polyomino. So again, I'm just sort of, but what seems really cool is you're building these kind of cogs on this scaffolding and alongside it, and these cogs are worker placement spaces to allow you to do the different actions in the game, and you're sort of creating worker placement spaces as you go that you're able to use and other people are able to use. So I really like the idea of worker placement spaces that are being sort of created on the fly as the game progresses, because it's something that's been done a couple times, but I think this is the first one that's really hit. So I'm excited to try that out. It's getting a lot of praise too. So Whistle Mountain. After the Empire is next on my list. This is sort of a tower defense type game, but with really cool chunky pieces where you have like a fortress of wood that you can upgrade to stone, and it just looks really cool on the table. And again, this is one that I don't know a lot about. I just know that it's getting a lot of high praise from Dice Tower folks and this kind of thing. People are saying it's really good. And it's sort of a competitive tower defense game. So you're not cooperating to try and keep the baddies out. You're trying to see who can do it best. And I just think this game looks really cool on the outside. This is definitely more of a spontaneous purchase if I go this route, but based on good things I've been hearing. So after the Empire, Funfair. So I missed Unfair when it came around, and my buddy, Father Greg, he really liked Unfair, and we just never got to the table when we were living in the same city. But there was a lot of complaints that it was kind of swingy and mean, and so Funfair is this game basically all over again, but just nicer and hopefully more well-balanced. So the theme for me of just creating a theme park, it just fills my heart with happy joy, and I'm excited to see how this game plays. And again, just the family way nature of this game, I think I can get this to the table quite a bit and have a lot of fun with a lot of different kinds of people. Scythe. So Scythe is definitely on my short list. This is a game that I have not played, and I really like Jamie Stegmaier's designs, and so I think I'm really going to like this. This is kind of the jewel in the crown of Stonemaier games, and I just need to get this again to the table. So this is just sort of a purchase that's been in the queue for a long time that I just haven't gotten around to. So there's Scythe. And then Terraforming Mars, another game. So the reason why I do not own Terraforming Mars is because the art on the cards is inconsistent and feels kind of clip art-y. And when I realized that, when I was looking at pictures and saw the card art, it just turned me off immediately. And yet there was this amazing game behind it, and this has been a staple in people's board gaming consumption for years now. And so I just need to get over myself and jump into Terraforming Mars and have a good time with it. Concordia. So I played Concordia once, had a blast, but just never got around to getting a copy for myself. And now I don't live near the buddy who had the copy, and so I want to get Concordia. Again, Concordia kind of has stayed in the queue for a long time because the board, to me, looks a bit boring. It's just kind of a map. There's nothing that pops. Again, art in Euro games is important to me to kind of keep me hooked. But Concordia is such a slick game, such a cool hand management situation going on. And so I want to get Concordia. So that's on my short list. And then Isle of Cats. So again, this is a game that has suffered from just not being available in Canada for a while. And so now it's readily available. I can get it at wherever I buy games. So Isle of Cats, again, Polyomino is just all over the place. And I kind of shrink away from it. I had a bad experience with Barron Park. And so I don't love Polyomino for that. But I think I gotta get over myself because I think it's here to stay. But Isle of Cats just looks so cool. So again, this is a game that is all about the family and about friends who don't play a lot of games. I can get this to the table with them a lot and have a great time. So Role Player, again, a game I played once as I was kind of getting into the hobby a bit. Since then, subsequently with playing something like Cartographers, it's really gotten me interested in playing games in that universe again. Setting up combinations of dice and a pattern in order to get victory points is cool. Comparing this with something like Sagrada, Role Player, just the theme is just more attractive, more appealing. The art on the cards is really beautiful. So I think just I'll have a lot of fun with Role Player, so that is on the list. And then Castles of Tuscany. So the idea that there is a game that is Castles of Burgundy that has a baby with Ticket to Ride is just too fun for me to pass up. I think this is going to be a blast. A lot of people complain about the swinginess of the game or the randomness of the game, or that why would you play Castles of Tuscany over Burgundy, or they're not even similar anyway. All these complaints about the game. But when people have liked this game, I've loved the reasons that they've liked it. So it's staying on my short list. Castles of Tuscany. Brass Birmingham. Again, never played Brass. Brass Birmingham looks beautiful. I hear it's the best implementation of Brass. Brass is on the hotness. A lot of my decisions also for shortlist are also influenced by the fact that I have this channel and I want to be playing games that people are talking about, so that you will be interested in seeing what I'm playing and what I think of these games. So Brass Birmingham is on that for that reason as well, but also just because of how highly recommended it comes and how gorgeous it looks. And then Empires of the North is my 13th game on this short list. I loved Imperial Settlers. Empires of the North, Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North looks like it fixes all the stuff that was wrong with Imperial Settlers. Just seems great. so there it is. So maybe I've talked too much about all those games, but those are my 13 games on my short list. So moving from step 3 into step 4, I do the Marie Kondo thing, what sparks joy. And basically it's not so much what sparks joy as much as what am I most excited to play. So I go over that short list and I pick the games that I'm most excited to play, because if I'm not excited about them, they won't get to the table. And so that's the criteria that I look at next. What makes me most excited? So looking over those 13 games that I just mentioned, here are the five games that are making the cut based on that. And so The Magnificent, Isle of Cats, Role Player, Castles of Tuscany, and Empires of the North are the games that are getting ahead. What are you most excited to play? Tell me down in the comments below what you are most excited to buy, get your hands on, and play. What games fill you with the most anticipation or excitement? Let me know, and hopefully we can have just a great conversation about that. Now, my step 5 is the hard choices. And this is where I realize that step 4 doesn't really matter, because it's an element, but it's not the whole thing. Because there are games that I'm not necessarily as excited to play as other games, but they are better games. And after playing them, the experience was richer and Meteor. So right off the top of my head, Dune Imperium and Castles of Mad King Ludwig stick in my mind as examples of this, where in my mind they are excellent games. They are the cream of the crop in terms of a gaming experience. But they don't necessarily draw me to the game because there's a lot of, they ask a lot of you in terms of bringing a lot to the table, in terms of thinking through your strategy, the effort that you have to put into these games in order to get ahead in them, how on you have to be while you're playing them. So it doesn't, and the themes sometimes aren't the most expansive or the most rich. Castle of Mad King Ludwig and Dune Imperium, they have fine themes. There's fun to be had in both of those, but they're still not, the theme isn't necessarily what's drawing me, it's the gameplay. But those are great examples of games that I'm excited to play other games more, but I would be remiss to have passed over those two games, right? So now this is where the hard choices come, and it's, trying to make a board game purchase is reasonable. So under $200 is kind of what I'm looking at. And then adding the games I'm most excited to the list, and then taking off a couple of those to make room for some of the games that I know are going to reward me with excellent gameplay, even if I'm not as excited to play them as I am other games. So this is where you come in. This is your part in the video. I'm going to come up with my own final order list. So a list of games under $200 that I can purchase out of what I've talked about. But I don't want to make the final decision. I want you guys to have your say in what games you think I should purchase next. So if you would, please, based on my short list of 13 games, make me a combination of a shopping list out of those games that, is under $200 or so. And I'll go ahead, and when I am ready to do my next purchase, I'll follow your guidance, and I'll buy games according to what you guys think. So don't be afraid to go into the deep cuts of the games that didn't make it past the first cut if you think that I would still enjoy those even. But yeah, do your worst. Make a combination. So that's my process for buying board games online. I hope you had fun going through that with me, and I want to acknowledge right off the bat that I am as much of a hobby gamer addict as all of you guys, where I know in my mind that the best thing to do is probably to buy one game, but I just can't, and I have all these games that are knocking at my door wanting to come into the collection. So thank you for sitting with me and going through all of these cool games. Hopefully you got reminded of games that you want to get your hands on, you want to play. So if you were reminded of some games that are missing from your collection, put those down in the comments below too. And thank you so much for being here. Until the next time I see you, have the best day.